Hey everybody, today I'm going to talk about Mario Kart Central bans, not because I really want to, but because I believe that there is some sort of disconnect about what constitutes an MKC ban to begin with. So I don't really work on the ban team anymore, and I haven't for a year, but I still hear a lot of the outrage and really kind of feel like I know what's going wrong for the most part. But today I want to be upfront and clear about why these bans happen to begin with, and what you can do to avoid getting one, because if I'm being honest, it's pretty easy to not get one. So we'll get into the why in a minute, but let me first clear up some misconceptions or misunderstandings about the ban system. So first off, site staff is a volunteer position. It's not their job to do criminal investigations. It is their job to help set the standard for the community and to pitch in some work on their downtime. To some, that might be unfortunate news, but I'm just going to keep it a buck. Moderators are not being paid to do this. You're not going to get quality of like full-time employees for free, and that's reasonable. So moderators simply do what they can, try to listen, and do their best. And if you believe there are MKC site moderators who aren't trying to listen, you can always approach me or some other admin or somebody else on the staff about it. We are willing to listen about it. We want to do the best job possible, so if that's not happening, trust me, we do care. Again, that involves approaching us though, so keep that in mind. Secondly, contrary to popular belief, moderators are not really going out of their way to, find people slipping up. We don't even like giving out bans to begin with because nobody wins in those situations. Everybody's just angry at everyone. And anyways, when things are brought to the attention of the staff team, that's when they act. They simply act on it in a way that protects the future vision we have of the site. So any rumors about us on Twitter stalking people, waiting for them to slip up, or like try to look for things in private servers, that's not true, because we don't have enough hours in the day to do that stuff to begin with. So in summary, if things don't get brought to the staff's attention, they're not going to know about it. Now, I want to give a disclaimer. This doesn't mean that we think being a shitty person is okay as long as you hide it from us. It simply means we're going to respect your privacy. And you should try to be better regardless, in my opinion, and if you aren't and something slips out of your server into a report ticket, that's when we have to consider action. So be careful about who's in your server. If people are getting bullied in your server, that's not okay either. The second it lands up in a ticket, that's when MKC is going to act on said slip up. And of course, things that happen in public, just in plain sight, that will be noted as well the second they're reported. So pretty much the job of staff is to respond to tickets and reports, and you should carry yourselves in a way that doesn't see yourself frequently in them. You don't want that, and we don't really want that either. But anyways, the important concept is the following, and this is why we ban people. It's all about future vision, and I want to talk about that a little bit in depth. So for our site and games to thrive, we need to have a direction. And we need more opportunities. And being short-sighted is not going to help in achieving that. That's, sacrificing the future for the now. Just letting people get away with things because it's not that big of a deal, etc. But our goals would be accomplished if Mario Kart became a mainstream competitive game that people love to play and use as a medium to socialize. And that would be to everybody's benefit. More people would get to enjoy the game in competitive settings. It would increase the level of competition over time. It would increase the amount of similarly skilled players to you at any time, and that includes everybody. It would increase the viewership of cast and player streams. It would increase the viability of larger cash prizes in future tournaments. It would potentially give us new opportunities such as sponsorships and big LAN tournaments across the world. It would give us new motivated staff members and give current players more of a reason to care. And finally, it would allow us to make the site itself better with more funding and help. So in order to chip away at all these goals, it is imperative that the community becomes a place that is welcoming and inviting. Referrals and word-of-mouth advertising are a very real thing, and we have a good thing going so far. But most importantly, we want our community members to feel safe and enjoy their time doing community activities. So the comfort of our members is top priority, and that is over clean tournaments with no forfeits. When we think about MKC in a couple of years, we want it to be a gathering place. We want to have over 1 million users, and we want to have a place where people can always find a game, meet new people, and improve in, a good environment. And we want our games to not just be relevant and respected across the esports and speedrunning world, we want to be the gold standard. And doing things that disrupt the experience of other people on the site stands against this vision. And if something does stand in the way of that vision, it's almost certainly going to be against our site rules. We don't have tolerance for bullying or harassment in any way whatsoever. We don't have tolerance for racism, homophobia, or transphobia, and if this is a problem for you, then you're simply just not a fit for the direction that we're going or the site in general. And we don't want to turn people away from our site, but the rules have got to be upheld. Being on MKC is a privilege, not a right. Now, we want people to be able to be on the site and enjoy it, but there are standards that are going to be upheld, and if you think that the site's doing a poor job or anything, you don't have to use it. If you wanted to go do your other thing, then be our guest. We are going to stand firm on what we believe is going to be the most successful blueprint for the future, and if people are going to get in the way of it, we unfortunately are going to have to act on it. We aren't going to go after people if there's no reason to, though. There are many formerly banned players who have been reinstated on MKC. Some of them are even helpers now or on staff teams like MKU, and all I want to say is we believe in change, but it has to be proven and earned. If you're going to continuously, troll during your ban or say rude things to other people, we're not going to just say, oh, well, it's been 6 months, you're allowed back on. No, if you're still being, kind of a problem, then unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get back on the site or anything like that. Additionally, on the other hand, it's important to remember that banned members should be not treated like crap either. A lot of non-banned users fall into this trap where, because they are a rule follower, they see people who get banned and think it's fine to clown them. This is wrong and an incredibly toxic trait that's not going to fix anything. If someone's not going to change, it's best to ignore them. If they aren't doing anything wrong anymore, it should be everybody's wish that the issue can actually be fixed and they can be reinstated. But trying to kick people while they're down is also not going to get us closer to our community vision. It's just making us uptight, and it's probably going to just make the banned user feel justified, if anything. I should iterate that not everyone is going to be friends and not everyone is going to get along, and that's fine. Trash talk is fine as long as it's not excessive or becoming too personal or turning into things like hate speech. Trash talk's pretty normal in really any sport. And I just want to say, I would recommend not, sparring too much with people that you don't know too well, because that's kind of weird to begin with. Alright, now that we've talked a little bit about behavior, let's shift gears. I want to talk about alts and, cheating and that kind of stuff. And I think I want to talk philosophy before we get into it. Really briefly. One of the philosophers that I learned about in ethics class put it a good way by asking the following question. What if everybody did that? And that's the kind of question where it's can things function normally if everybody does this? And if the answer is no, then it's probably bad or immoral or something like that. And I think this is something to bring up with alting and cheating. I'd say that that's the reason why they're so frowned upon. Because if everyone cheated or hacked in competitions, the idea of competitions would just be meaningless, and thus our site would have little to no value in a sense. And if everybody used alternate accounts, then our registration system would be effectively invalidated by that. And the idea of teams or even MMR rankings, that couldn't exist anymore. Now, cheating's more obvious to everyone as an obviously bad thing, so I want to talk about the thing that more people attempt to wrap up the video, and that'd be alting. So from day one on MKC, we've made it very obvious that alt accounts are not allowed on the site and community, and there's typically two reasons why people would make an alt. The first type of alt is the one that people use because they want to smurf or play against people with a lower rating to make winning easier. And this is obviously detrimental to the fairness of competitions because in a community still very much focused on division-based competitions, a player that goes undercover and can easily win will tend to prevent teams from having an honest, winnable competition. And additionally, teams will often build their playstyle around their best players. And if a player is not fully committed and sees them as the second option, in the long run, this will hinder the progression of the team that they alt onto. Now, it's never going to be 100% possible to banish alt accounts, and I'm not going to sit back and claim that if some alternate accounts got through on occasion, that it's a massive failure on our part, because I don't think we should see it that way. And I think that's because our alternate account policy more or less does its job. We've seen a huge reduction in these types of alt account cases because people don't really want to risk getting a huge ban over something that isn't really necessary for them to do. And that being said, there's a second type of alternate account, and this is the one I think that happens more these days. This is the one where people try to make an alt to bypass a pre-existing site ban. I think the reason why these accounts are attempted much more is because these players reach a point where they feel like there's nothing to lose. And we got to find a way to make them not feel that way. I think that comes back to the whole, not clowning people and wanting to work with them so, they can be reinstated eventually. And while we still have incentives to not make alt accounts even after an MKC ban already, it's worth noting that, band players are more likely to break these rules because they've already displayed that they're rule breakers. That's probably why they're banned. My personal stance on the subject is that we've made the alt policy clear enough and that we don't really need to do extra work because, quite frankly, again, it's a volunteer role and we don't want to make this our jobs, or full-time jobs, I would say. I think we've done enough to disincentivize alting. So here's the thing. Having to make an alternate account in order to participate is a punishment of its own, and that even goes for the ones that are never actually detected. Number one, you can't get too obvious on the alternate account or use it to its fullest extent, because success or any sort of notoriety is only going to make people raise eyebrows, and if your Discord account is new or your FC doesn't have a ton of hours, staff and non-staff alike are going to start examining you more closely. It's pretty obvious. Number two, the more people investigate you, the harder it's going to be to continue to cover things up. Things will inevitably not make sense when, coming up with backstories and all of that. I think everybody kind of thinks that their backstories are better than they actually are, but, we've seen cases of that, and I'm not really looking to provide the examples. Number three, being caught at any moment results in a reset and deletion of all the records that you set on the account. Number four, it makes reinstatement more difficult to obtain than it would be before the alt, and in some cases, it can make it pretty much impossible. So we've had some people who have made alternate accounts get unbanned, and it's because they're usually cooperative. And finally, number five, you have to hide secrets from any new friends you make, and when you're caught, it makes people, dislike you for betraying their trust. So with all of this said, it's up to people whether or not they want to take the risk. We're obviously still going to take steps to prevent this from happening, and the system will be beefed up a little bit when new Mario Kart Central launches. I think these people likely just want to laugh that they were able to successfully get on the side and call us stupid or something. Typically there's friction between the staff team and band players to begin with, and I guess that's their way of getting back and owning us, I guess. And at some point, we just gotta sit back and, they're kind of just wasting their life if they're doing this, and we're not going to waste ours. Now, I think it's sad to see people, making alts over and over again, but, there are better things to worry about than to worry about them in this case. MKC's number one priority, after all, is making things better for the community, and bans are just an unfortunate, necessary evil that we have to deal with on that job. So there was a time where I was a bit of a detective back when I was more focused on bans and stuff, but these days I've realized that I don't really care that much anymore, and if this is what's fun for players, then so be it. I think it's kind of miserable, but if they're not willing to follow our rules and wait their ban period out, then they don't really care enough to begin with. That's not our problem. If they want to be back so bad, then they can just act better. And we'll be willing to accept them if they've truly put in the effort like mentioned. So, with that being said, I don't know how many people actually watched this to the end, but I just felt like I would kind of talk about it and try to make it more clear. I think the common misconception for a while, and I guess it hasn't happened too recently, people would always post like their MKC bans and stuff on Twitter and all of that. I think the misconception is that the staff really, wants to go after people and stuff, and I just want to say is like, somebody who's been around since the beginning, it's like, logically speaking, that doesn't even make sense, because all that happens when we ban people is there's some kind of friction or some kind of like mini uprising and all that kind of stuff. Do you guys think that we want to be the villains? Not really. I don't gain any pleasure personally out of seeing somebody get banned. As a matter of fact, it just puts a target on her back, if anything. Realistically, it's just all going to be about the vision, as I talked about. And unfortunately, if people want to get in the way of that, then that's just what we have to do. Because we've seen in the past on former websites and stuff, if you are too lenient, people will step all over you, and we just can't let that happen again. We're in 2022 now. The future's very bright if we just continue our current path, and I don't want to go backward, I guess. We're at the point where great things are available to us, and I think the only way we can really look is forward, and we've gotten this far, I guess. So, it's my hope that you guys kind of see that, want to be a part of it, and that if you've been a band player in the past and stuff, that we can eventually move past it, and everything in the future can be better for everybody. So that's really all I have for now. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this provided some clarity, but that's all.